Thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Let's start the discussion right now. Let me introduce my guest, starting from my father's right. Joshua Nyamori is here, is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you for making time.
Good evening, Trevor.
Dr. Peter Mbai is also here, former head of Ministerial Delivery Unit at Ministry of Trade and Governance and leadership expert now. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much. Good to have you.
And Professor Alfred Omenya is also here, award-winning architect and urban development planner. Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
So during the burial of Kasipul Member of Parliament, Ongondo Were, there seemed to be some division playing out in the broad-based government. This is what the Secretary General of ODM, Edwin Sifuna, had to say. Listen.
We have to protect this institution called ODM. Wakati nafanya kazi yangu, wengine wanasema, oh, Sifuna anapinga, Sifuna anapinga. Ile kitu najua baba aliniambia ya kwamba even after we donated our experts to government, ODM is not in government. Alisema mwenyewe. Na atarudia hapa. If ODM is not in government, the Secretary General of ODM cannot be in government. Surely, people.
Prof, is ODM in government or not in your analysis?
Yeah. No, thank you. I think, this is a classical case of, trying to eat your cake and have it. We are talking about a broad-based government, so is that the same as is the same government as the one that Ruto had? Meanwhile, of course, every time we hear ODM, actually speaking quite vehemently that they're not in government, yet, the people within ODM are actually in government. We see them inside there. Yeah, so I think ODM will not actually be able to get away with it, trying to convince us that they're not there while we are seeing them inside of government. Yeah. So it won't be possible, really, for ODM to dissociate itself with the failures of this government. And I think if the leader of ODM can pick something, and us, foot soldiers of ODM, we've always taken the sting, by joining these governments. And this time around is even bizarre because we've joined the government and we are saying we haven't. That means we can't even claim the full goodies in government in the sense that we are not there. Yeah. Yet at the same time, we are seeing our people there as it actually were. Yeah, so I think eventually ODM will have to get itself out of this conundrum. It is quite clear that, this government is not very popular. And anybody who intends to win an election in the future must think carefully how to relate with this government. In fact, I think from where I sit, ODM joined the government first, then thought later. And when they were thinking later, it was a bit late, too late to leave. And therefore, we end up with this particular situation where you are, it's a come we stay arrangement, where a woman has actually stayed with this person for 32 years, and then she comes and says, no, but, she's not my wife. Yeah. My husband, we never really, he never paid dowry. We never consummated. No, the marriage was consummated. We just didn't, exchange vows in church. Yeah. That is the situation we are in here. So ODM is in government. I think the sooner you realize that, the better. Okay. We are not fools. Yeah. We can see you inside there, and you'll be responsible for the failures of Ruto's government. Okay,
Dr. Mbai.
Thank you very much. To answer your question,
what do you think is causing all this?
To answer your question, ODM is in government, but they are fighting so hard to deny it. What ODM is doing is to play smart. I'm in, one leg out, for convenience sake. Now, if you remember a bit of history, during the other term, they were accused of being too much in government, and according to them, they lost the elections because of yet they were not. They were outside. But the perception is that they were in. So this time they decided, we are going to eat fast. 27 issues aside, we first of all must eat now. And that's why the leader of ODM is playing this way. There's some team that is being told, you eat and, praise the government, the people like Badi, people like Wanga, and all the kind of people, Joho and Oparanya. But the same Baba have directed, and Sifuna is very nice. He's very honest. He says, Baba, you have told me that I must continue pushing and putting the pressure. Remember when Bob was going to AU, Sifuna said, you told me what to do, and when you come back, I'll give you back you know, the party, what you told me. Now, you'll see people like Baba, we know Sifuna, they are all playing and Baba is happy. When the house, so that if the pressure gets too much, if the anti-government voices increase, he moves out and says, you see, and remember, the MOU, if you have noticed, if you have a spouse who every morning says, you know me, I'll leave you. When well went to say, we never signed for assassinations. When Echoes of War came, said, we never signed up for a student to be beaten. This is a very shaky, an extremely shaky in the political history of this country. Relationship that's going to happen here. So they are playing safe so that if now everything gets up and Ruto seems to be losing towards 27, they'll say, you see, the 10 things were not done. Corruption is still there. People are complaining. And because of that, we are leaving government. But for now, he was told, Baba, last time we missed, we didn't eat. This time round, CSS, PSS, ambassadors, chairman of parastatals, board members, a lot of jobs, a lot of tenders. They said, Baba, keep quiet fast. We must eat. That's why, against all advice, Baba had to agree to sign that thing because people were interested in getting to government first.
Okay. Nyamuri, what kind of legal backing does this situation have now? As you tell us whether you think ODM is in government or not. Because it's not a coalition, it's not an alliance, but there are cabinet secretaries and PS positions that ODM has somehow managed to get.
Yeah, let me start from the point of saying that Kenya is evolving a very unique and innovative political system. And it's a political system that allows, you know, opposition parties to still have influence in government by having their members participate in the governance of the country, whilst, you know, not folding themselves from being distinct parties. And then what then happens, what you see as, you know, differing opinions, which Prof and Daktari want to interpret as, you know, unreconcilable differences, is actually a manifestation of democracy. And, you know, we are bringing people who have had different ideologies, different views together. When you bring people together like that, it takes time to build cohesion. You will always find the moderates in either of the parties, and you will find the headliners. And the headliners will try always to tear apart, you know, the arrangement. And so what I'm thinking is, if you want to know the position of the corporation, you need to look at the leadership. And you see, when the president was in Migori, he specifically assured the ODM fraternity that ODM fraternity, we are not out to compete with you. We are going to work on a framework that ensures cooperation. Okay? When you listen to Raila Odinga respond to Honorable Mbadi and Honorable Sifuna, he actually, yes, did note that Sifuna is the Secretary General, and the Secretary General, therefore, is the spokesman of the party. But however, that Sifuna needs to tone down his vitriol against, you know, the corporation. And in that, both the leadership is actually pursuing and encouraging their members to pursue cooperation. So you then ask the legal arrangement. The legal arrangement is that in the constitutional framework that we are in Kenya, we do not have, you know, opposition and government in the sense that they were before the 2010 constitution. We only have the minority and the majority side, which means everybody should be in government. And Article 232 actually requires that the governance structure should be the face of Kenya, and that merit is actually subordinate to inclusivity. That's the framework that we have. And therefore, since, because of that, this arrangement is a political arrangement that offends no law, offends no part of the Constitution, offends no law, but allows the president to, you know, reach across the aisle and bring in people who had previously opposed each other to agree on certain things. And these things were agreed on within the 10 points and pursue an inclusive and an effective government that can serve everybody.
The only problem we have with that a bit is that there is a lot of incest with this arrangement, especially in Parliament.
Right.
Because we have members who are in the minority. They are chairing committees meant for majority, right? Now, why they cannot register that arrangement so that they can hide? Because if it registers, therefore, ODM quits and other parties come in and take officially the minority seats. So, in terms of, Trevor, what we have been talking about, systems and processes and institutions, dead. And that is the biggest problem we have. Remember, there are students right now doing political history in the universities and all that. They are watching. So it's difficult for them to know what kind of democracy we are. This is dangerous for prosperity. It may look very nice politically, right? Because I think, I can throw all the balls being in the air at the same time. It is dangerous. That's why every time we have been told, okay, fine, you want to get in together, just register it, according to the law, so that we know that this UDA and ODM, they have a working, a post-election or working arrangement. But now it's so sad that chairmen of committees that are supposed to be chaired by UDA are chaired by ODM. There is a lot of confusion all over there. It's not good for history. It's not good for institutional memory. It's a sad thing. It's just a mix-up of things.
Okay. Prof. Nyamuri says this is a manifestation of democracy.
Yeah, well I think that's a very interesting position, Wakili. And I would agree and advance a little bit of the thesis that Dr. Mbai is highlighting here, but from first principles. The simple question is whether, regardless of the arrangements that we have in our constitution, why do we create these different entities or elements? Why do we create the minority and the majority? If the two can just come together and be something that we don't know whether it's minority or majority, why do we create bodies within Parliament and committees that oversight government? Why do we elect one party into government and then of course the other party that does not win? What should they actually do? Should they just try to join government? Is that our constitutional arrangement, that you either win or you try to join government? I think it's simplistic that we can take such a view, especially having worked quite hard as a country to create these institutional arrangements and so on. In fact, my biggest problem when this president was elected, and I was on air and I said it, my biggest worry was the executive overreach, and you could see clearly intentions of the executive to run over other institutions. Then we're worried that the executive would run over Parliament, that the executive might try to do something shady with the judiciary, and then somewhere along the line we'll really not even have a country in the first instance. I think we create institutions so that we actually vest these institutions with very specific functions to do, and I think it is actually responsible to come and say that these institutions or individuals heading these institutions can then have some other arrangements that don't offend our institutional arrangements, and then we accept that is actually the norm. And Kenya increasingly we are losing in a major way by not having oversight. I think on one hand, one wonders the responsibility that the president has to his own party in terms of what he promised that he was going to deliver, because we can no longer even recognize his government. But on the other hand, like is being said here, and we can actually see it quite clearly here, those who are meant to oversight government, the minority, are now with the majority. They don't even know where they are in the first instance. That is actually bad for our governance, honestly. These things can only be accepted in a situation where we are saying, look here, we have basically total failure of government and we don't want a collapse. So it becomes an emergency arrangement. But I think under normal circumstances, this particular behavior of ODM to constantly kill the opposition and join the government must be called out. I think Ruto and his government would deliver a little bit better if the oversight institutions were doing their roles. But we can't actually come here surely and tell the nation that is okay that bodies, entities, political parties that are meant to have oversight roles, can just easily walk on the other side and try to deliver what the executive is exactly trying to deliver. Because we could have easily just said, look, let everybody get elected, and then they form a government. Why do we have minority in the first instance? What is the role of that particular minority? If one of the things that we are advancing here is that the minority can always just cross over and join the majority. I am a strong believer in fidelity of institutions, and I think one of the things that is disturbing in this country is basically our total disregard of institutions and institutional mandates, and the sort of very unhealthy prostitution really between different entities that offends everything from morality to common sense. In fact, we just have a cabal of thieves purporting to be running institutions. This has to stop really if you're serious about taking this country forward. Otherwise, let's go back to Kanu. Let's have one party. Let everybody who's running run on that party. Let the president of that party pick government from there. Why do we have multi-party? Why do we have minority and majority? Why do we have... And the ODM guys are always saying, we removed the term opposition. It doesn't matter. Oversight is oversight, regardless of what you actually call it. And if you're the person who was meant to have been oversighting, and then now you join the person you're oversighting, who's oversighting you? And you see, in fact, Trevor, this is not just about UDA. You see now this whole idea that every member of parliament wants to do some executive roles. MCAs want to do some executive roles. Senators want to do some executive roles. It is this, sort of lack of fidelity to institutions that we're actually perpetrating.
Okay. But let me bring in Nyamori first, then I'll come to you, Dr. Mbai. Does this arrangement weaken the oversight role of Parliament?
The problem we have in this country is that we have a new constitutional framework, but all of us, including very highly respected academicians like Prof, and I really respect Prof, have refused to move from, the old constitutional framework. In the new constitutional framework, we have no party that is a minority. What we have is we have a parliament that should oversight. But then we have a government that should be inclusive. When a government is inclusive, it means that it should be ethnically, politically, in terms of age, in terms of religion, and all that. So that should be reflected in the face of government, in the face of the executive. So the president should be leading a cabinet that cross-fertilizes the ethnic, political, religious ideologies and views from every, group in Kenya. And then Parliament as a whole should oversight, And nothing stops the Kenyan Parliament now from oversighting. If then Prof feels that his MP, and his MP is a very learned, a very illustrious guy, he's my friend, and he's Prof's friend, I know that, Honorable Chanda, he needs to go to Honorable Chanda and tell Honorable Chanda that as a professor, I have issues with 1, 2, 3, and 4 with regard to government policies, and let Honorable Chanda use the parliamentary committees to then summon the cabinet secretaries and the PSS and question them on those aspects. It does not matter whether Honorable Chanda will be summoning an ODM nominated CS or a UDA nominated CS. So I am one of the people who refuses to accept the fact that we can fail to oversight government simply because we have an inclusive government. Inclusion is a fundamental requirement in this government. And you see, the lack of inclusion is what we saw in 2007. when we burnt this country. Lack of inclusion is what we saw in 2013 when several people died. Lack of inclusion is what we saw in 2017 and what we saw in 2022 and what we saw in the Mandamanos and what we saw during the Gen Z. Right now, because of this arrangement, we have a young man who just completed university. The guy from, is it Malindi or somebody, who is currently sitting as a PS. You get me? Yeah. So we cannot lose that for anything. We cannot lose that because a certain group feels that they are the ones who should be in the government, and another group feels that they were condemned to be in the opposition.
Okay.
Hold on. I think, Trevor, just to be fair, because in all the studies I've done on leadership and governance, we cannot sit here this evening and equate inclusion to BBG, to broad-based government. We are getting very wrong. I think that idea that now inclusion, because we have a broad-based government, that is inclusion, that can only be a joke of the year. Now, inclusion cannot just be right just because it exists in the mind of one or two people. Just because now that imagination and that interpretation of inclusion is what appears in the mind of one person in this country. It cannot be. Please, let's not demean, let's not belittle the word inclusion. What it means is not just to go pick a few people, call them a broad-based government and whatever else you call it, and call that inclusion. Let's not go there because it cannot be. I mean, that is somebody who is trying to simply stifle and confuse and mess oversight institutions because of political gain. That is a fact. You know, the one you come in and then you think, no, I can juggle here. I can juggle that ball. I can confuse National Assembly and Senate. I can make sure that I get all my bills passing just because of just messing up the structure. Let me tell you, when you say that oversight exists, when a chairman, the majority seats, right, are supposed to be held, the chairman are supposed to be coming from the ruling coalition, right? You cannot come and tell me that you are going to ask, you are the person who is supposed to liaise with the executive and bring answers to the House. So how can you oversight yourself? That's why there's minority side, who now, more or less, are the ones who actually, put the government side to task. That is now the actual arrangement. These are the arrangement. They are saying that every member of parliament does oversight. That is just in theory. Okay. The reality of the matter, because you cannot, if the chairman, the chairman of committees come from the majority party. Okay. That is why there's minority party. So when the minority party members get into chairmanship of the committees, it is just a disaster. And I can tell you, Kenyans are on their own. Okay. Trevor, Kenyans are on their own. We are looking now to churches. We are looking to the loyal opposition in parliament, members who felt like now we don't like this arrangement, the loyal opposition right now going on, civil society organizations, the media. These are the people, because right now under the current position, look at those reports by Auditor General. All of them on SHA, on all this, they all end up in parliament. But a lot of times they don't see the end of they don't see the light of the tunnel, because these numbers, and then somebody happens. But let me warn you, the moment you do that, one day it will eat you up. The whole thing will turn against you.
So at what point did you realize Kenyans are on their own? Because you are part of this government as the head of delivery services.
Thank you very much. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I quit. Because it couldn't work. And me, Trevor, I don't want to come and ask you that question 2027. That's why I quit. Trevor, you come in with a lot of honesty and emotional. You invest your emotions and time and money and everything else to just make this work. I mean, I was part of this government. We looked for it, and we came here not for salary. Some of us, I don't talk on behalf of other people, Trevor. We came here to deliver, and we lined up everything. In all the ministries I worked, Trevor, like for the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, I can tell you, we went there, we did things have never been done on trade, on investments. A report came last month, Trevor. Kenya got the highest FDI for the year 23-24, when you were there. And it beyond defeated Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, the highest in Africa. That is what we did. It is there for record. What we did in trade, all the signs today, AFCFTA is signed. Courtesy of what we did in Africa. Moving in, and we brought in one day 35 ministers of trade in Kenya. Towards that, look at manufacturing. Trevor, we launched county aggregation industrial parks. We were to do 47. We did 17. We were moved in, reshuffled when we were on air, moving to launch others. It is stored. Because we came in to transform. All our projects were aired live because we believed in government communication. Now, when you want to go and tell people, if you surely want to deliver for the people who walks barefooted, for that person who milks one cow and depends on the milk to send their kids to school, let us be serious. If you are not serious, Trevor, I cannot be part of that. Because I never went for a salary. I went to transform. If it's not possible, you go back and tell people it's done. Let's look for another formula of helping Kenyans.
So you're saying at the time you're launching all these things, you did not know that they were not...
At that time, we were doing the work. Until sometime you began thinking, the moment you begin showing that you have so much passion, guys are thinking, they are beginning to fear you. They're thinking, why are you so passionate more than us? And then something is happening, something comes, Trevor, and they begin telling you, you are an outsider, this is our government. Now what do you do?
Prof, it's this Damascus moments that I have a problem with, because there are quite a number who now say that this is not working, but they were there initially.
Right.
Do you buy those?
I like the word initially. Because yes, we were there initially. But at some
you resigned
point,
in January 2025.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
We were there initially.
And
then we discovered, Trevor, you remember, for the first time since independence, for the first time since independence, this is important. We went to all the ministries, told them, let us stop all this moving around. Tell us what you have achieved since the government get to. Tell us what you are going to do. It was so tough. We present the report. Ask the people what happened to that report. The ones that said, do you see all these things on housing, on health and all that?
We'll give you a chance to defend.
We have all these things that you say.
What I want to hear from Prof is, are these Damascus moments genuine or that's just sour grapes?
Well, I mean, really, as far as I'm concerned, especially in this murky political environment, you know, it might be difficult to discern clearly where the differences are. Because we also know that there have been bigger political storms that in UDA that also has created some interesting shifts. But if everything said and done, I mean, for me, the position I take normally is that, you know, does the explanation make sense in the first instance? I know a lot of people have said in this country that, oh, you know, I mean, how can you tell us, in fact, it's normally a very good example, how can you tell us about corruption and you are part of the corrupt government? And the position I've always said is that actually that's the person who should be telling us about corruption. You know, if somebody was a gang leader and he's telling you about how the gang works, you can't come and tell him that you're not qualified to talk about the gangs since you're one of them. So I think Daktari here is an asset in that regard because he was he was part of the gang, so he knows how the gang works. But having said that, I actually had occasion to have conversation with people inside government, and to be fair to some of these individuals, I mean. An individual whose name I don't want to say, because anyway, he has left the government, was able to tell the president to his face that, you know, what Professor is saying here is exactly what I've been telling you. And that was in a cabinet retreat. And that was long before, you know, he left government, as it were. So I still believe the people inside there is a mixed pot. I still believe they're traditional eaters. Who are just there to fill their stomachs regardless. I still believe that people believe they can still do something regardless of the challenges that are in there. I don't know how. And then of course there are people who say no. I mean, I tried to do what I could, and it's not working. I think it's a mixed pot. But of course, what confuses the whole thing currently are these murky sort of political arrangements. And I think for us, really, as intellectuals or slightly more independent people, you know, we should actually call these things for what they are, really. I mean, because I don't care. I'm not going to be sacked by Raila from ODM or sacked by Ruto from any job, as it were. So I think it's my responsibility, both moral and political, you know, to put my thoughts the way I see them, because they're not adulterated by any interest. I don't want any appointment from Ruto's government or from Raila's government. I have no intention to do such. So that is partly why I think Kenyans need to be serious. What we have, which the president had called a mongoloid before he got into government.
Mongrel.
Mongrel, sorry, a mongrel before he got into government. His is worse than a mongrel, actually. We don't even know. He's like a seven-headed dragon that is eating everything. I think we have a governance crisis, really. Yeah. We do have a governance crisis. How we got in there is another story altogether. Whether it was the president being defeated to govern, whether it was caused by Gen Zs, whether it was caused by Raila himself doing demonstrations and outside there, that's water under the bridge. But we cannot sit here and pretend that what we are running is an ideal situation. What you're running is bad for governance. Yeah. What you're running is bad for this country. Okay. What you're running is bad for the constitution, is bad for the separation of power, is even bad for the same politicians. You listened to them the other day, in the funeral in Homa Bay, and you couldn't recognize that these are the same guys who are working together. Because meanwhile, somebody's throwing barbs this side, another one is saying, no, we're not working with UDA. Another one is saying, I believe the Secretary General. The other one is saying, oh, yes, but he has not delivered. And they're all from the same house. That is, it is actually bad for governance, as it actually were. Okay. And the sooner we recognize that yes, where we are is not ideal. And yes, if you're forced by circumstances to be there, we need to accept. But to start pretending that it's a good place, it's not a good place, really. Okay. I have to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll still continue with this discussion. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. See you in just a bit.